What is self-sabotage? Self-sabotage are those invasive energies that we create ourselves to protect ourselves from after having experienced any form of emotional disappointment or trauma. So what are we doing? Releasing self-sabotaging invasive entities as we from our old identities that felt the need to create them in the first place. And the hardest entities to clear are the ones that we create ourselves. They're the ones that we create ourselves. And I know it's like kind of a mind-blowing, like, wow, I made this thing that's sabotaging my life and causing me all this anxiety and causing me all this stress. And oh, yeah, we do. We create them in those moments where we think that we need them. And then they outlive their purpose, right? Now is this a wonderful time to do some identity healing. If you have any struggles right now, it's potentially rooted somewhere in that, because that's what's being activated, identity. And the more you cling to your old identity, your old frequency, your old you and how you define yourself, the more you could potentially be feeling imbalanced or dysregulated from the energy that's occurring right now. The angels and guides are telling me to really include this one because this is important to point out. They're saying there's a natural shedding of the old identity energies, and that can result in feeling some discomfort as it sheds. Some discomfort as it sheds. The individual healings that you're all going to be receiving today is also largely going to be focused on releasing those parts of yourself that are ready to release, but are a little bit stuck and causing discomfort. And they keep putting this image in my mind, so I will share it with you. I have a pet gecko. Her name is Peachy. She's a really cute little gecko. We love our Peachy gecko, and she sheds because she grows. And sometimes after a shed, you want to check your little gecko to make sure none of the skin is like stuck to her fingers or hands or tail. But the same thing can happen to us. Essentially, it will create discomfort. If our old selves are stuck and we're not releasing it fully, it's going to result in some discomfort. And so releasing that, which is not serving you anymore. But invasives, what do they want? They want us to they want it to stay stuck. They want it to stay stuck because it's those parts of us that stay stuck that invasive energies can access your energy through. Because of course they want you in low frequency. Of course they want you in an old identity. The old identity is what the invasive was agitating so that you could stay in that frequency that's serving the invasive. And if you release it, well, then you're more in your power and you're more in your new evolved identity. And the more you're in your new and evolved identity, the stronger you are and the more powerful you are, and the less energy is going to be available for invasive energies. So, angels, please clear all invasive energies that are keeping any parts of my old outgrown identities stuck. And preventing me from evolving higher into my highest timeline and my highest expression of myself, my highest frequency. We can help our old identities evolve and mature so where they can integrate with your current level of consciousness by offering them healing. And you can just visualize, do I have any old identities that are in need of healing right now, right? So all my old identity Leahs that are in need of this healing, line up. And initially I got a sense of a whole bunch of them, but now it's down to like 5 or 6. Something that I have never talked about because I've always taken it for granted, but somebody asked me in the YouTube comments and I was like, oh my God, I really have to speak to this. So I'm really grateful for this person who commented, because a lot of times people in your life who have invasive energies on them, entities and attachments on them, and then they steal your energy, right? The invasive entity is stealing your energy through that person. Well, you can get that energy back. Somebody asked me, well, can you get your energy back from that's been stolen by entities? Yeah, it's all the same. It's all the same when you do your energy retrieval. But what we can do is we can get really specific with it. Ask the question, do I have any personal energy that has been stolen or taken or given to? However, is there any of my personal energy out there that that invasives have? Do invasives have any of my personal energy, my personal life force energy? So angels, please retrieve my personal power from any entities and attachments. Clear any entities and attachments that had it. Reset it, bless it, elevate it. So, okay, I'm getting a sense that this Leah is now ready to, old identity Leah has been healed and she's like coming closer to me. She's ready to reintegrate. There's another Leah. What's up with her? She's just like laying down. Well, why are you laying down? I see invasive energies around her. Angels, please clear all invasive energies. Okay. Oh, wow. Interesting. I remember this. I remember this. I remember when this happened. They're telling me, I was going to share the story, and I was like, I'm not going to share the story. But they're like, share the story. I'm all, okay, I'll share the story. So I had postpartum. I had just given birth to my second daughter. And my boyfriend at the time, her father, he was really selfish and he was an alcoholic. And anyway, he was just not a good partner. And he had gone to work. I was so depressed that I just like laid down after he left for work. I just like laid down on the tile floor and I was just laying there on the floor. I did the depression collapse on the floor thing. So I'm just laying there on the floor in like my pity, self-pity, misery, sadness, and depression. And I guess he had gotten his schedule wrong because he came back. So like I thought he was at work. He came back. He comes walking in the house. I'm laying on the floor in like probably one of the deepest depressed moments of my life, one of. And do you know what he did? He walks in the door. He steps over me as if I wasn't even there. He freaking stepped over me. Not like, Leah, are you okay? Do you need a hug? Like, did something happen? Nothing. Nothing. Stepped over me. That must have been when an entity or stepped into me. Because I had checked out. I was so depressed, I had checked out. And I have this memory of when an entity came in. Because I was different. I sat up and I thought to myself, I'm done. I'm done. But Leah as she was, without that entity, would not have had it in her to say, no, I'm done. She would have just continued to lay down and be stepped over after just giving birth to his child. She wouldn't have had it in her. But that entity did. That entity, I sat up, I felt like a different person. I sat up and I was like, done. I was done. I'm not saying that entities are a good thing. This is an example of a permission. And this is also how sometimes they serve the light. And this is also how sometimes they are of our own creation. Leah needed her. Leah needed her. And she served Leah. And Leah had that fierceness. And Leah was done with him. And that was that. And that was that. But the moral of this story is that I don't need that entity anymore. Leah was weak. Leah was depressed. Leah was literally a doormat. Well, not even a doormat because she wasn't even worth being stepped on, just stepped over. No, but so Leah needed her, but Leah doesn't need her anymore. And that old identity, Leah doesn't need her anymore. And as I tell you this story, because you grow and you evolve and you build your strength and you build your boundaries and you build in your power and you strengthen yourself on levels where you no longer need that. So I see Leah standing up off the floor and she's like just kind of like dusting herself off. And it's almost like in that moment, there was some type of a subconscious permission made with that entity. So I see her like ripping up the permission. And then angels, please clear that entity. Because what else did that entity do? That entity prevented Leah from having any relationship. Because that entity was always there to say, like, he's bad, he's bad, he's bad, always looking for something too. Because what was its job? Its job was to protect her from never being hurt again, from never being stepped over again by an uncaring, unfeeling, selfish man or anything. And that's as heartbreaking as it was, like that's nothing compared to what some women go through. And I've also been through on a like when it comes to abuse from men, right? Physically, emotionally, psychologically, anything, right? What's that entity going to do? It's going to keep you safe. Her job is to keep you safe, or its job is to keep you safe. So it's going to attack anybody that gets too close. It's going to attack anybody that gets too close. And that's another narcissistic entity. That's why they can't really truly achieve true closeness. There's that inner child that experienced severe trauma. So they create these entities to keep anybody from getting close to hurt that child again. But if, again, like I said, if you don't need them anymore, you don't need them anymore. We reach a point in our development where we don't need them anymore, and you can release that contract. And the hardest entities to clear are the ones that we create ourselves. They're the ones that we create ourselves. And I know it's like kind of a mind blowing, like, wow, I made this thing that's sabotaging my life and causing me all this anxiety and causing me all this stress. And oh, yeah, we do. We do. We create them in those moments where we think that we need them. And then they outlive their purpose, right? So you can ask yourself, have I created any to keep me safe that I have outgrown, that I don't need anymore, that I don't need anymore? For your old identities or even your current identity. I see a whole bunch of them. My guides are telling me, yeah, most of them are relationships because the majority of my trauma has come from relationships. So of course I have like this whole crew of invasive energies that like chase away any potential relationship because I had to create a crew to keep me safe from relationships. That's what they do. But I've outgrown them. I don't need them anymore. I'm emotionally mature enough and spiritually evolved enough, and I'm solid and I'm confident in my discernment. Yeah. So you reach that level, oh, you outgrow them. You don't need them anymore. Angels, please clear all those. I'm ready to release them all. And it's as simple as that. I'm ready to release any invasive energies or entities that I've created that are birthed of myself. And that's where the ancestrals come in too, because if you're experiencing any kind of a wounding, like I was, like on the floor, that's just me on the floor example. My mom, she went, well, what was all the bulk of her trauma in her life came from her relationships as well, and them in her life as well. And her mom, the same. So it's this inherited pattern. So what entity is about to be birthed from me? It's just going to come from that power, from that lineage, from my mom's oppression and trauma from men, and her mom's oppression, and who knows how many generations back. And that's also what feeds in those ancestrals. So clearing, I release all entities of my creation or strengthened from my power that were ancestral that I've outgrown that no longer serve me. And angels, please clear them. Angels, please clear those. And just a reminder, when I say angel, I'm referring to high frequency divine essence, to introduce that high frequency energy into that low frequency energy to clear or transform it. You know what? The angels are telling me I did a really good job with that one. They're like, good job. I like it when I get the little pat on my shoulder. So, and they're saying you are doing a really good job with it too. You're doing a really good job with it too. And seeing how many of those you can find. And so I don't see Leah laying on the floor anymore. She's just gone. In fact, I don't see any old identity Leahs anymore. They're just gone. That suggests to me that they got the healing that they needed. And what happens when you clear that old skin or those old identities? What happens? You become more present in your power, in who you are, and how you show up in the world. You have more of your own power available to you. Because that Leah laying on the floor, there was still a part of me that felt that way. She's stuck there, yeah? Part of me was feeling that sense of worthlessness. And then there was that other part of me that was still kind of showing up in a codependent way. Like, but I feel this sense of obligation to fix everything for everybody. We also have those expectations, and it's always good to periodically clear your own expectations that you put on yourself, and then also expectations that other people put on you. If I ask a question, does she have expectations that she puts on herself or from others put on her? She's surrounded by sacks of paper. She's starting to get brighter. She's starting to feel better. It's as if she was chained by these self-expectations and expectations from others. And remembering always at the root of everything that causes us any emotional discomfort or mental discomfort or any struggles in our lives at all, it can all trace back to one thing, and it's always worthiness. It's always worthiness. It's at the root of everything. So if you can heal that worthiness, find that worthiness, then everything else that's stacked up on it, like that resentment, that anger, that frustration, that sense of failure, that sense of abandonment, that sense of everything else will clear if you can get down to the root. And the root is always worthiness. It's always worthiness. If you could focus on clearing or healing nothing else but just worthiness, like that right there will resolve a good bulk. Instead of having to try to clear this abandonment or this fear or this resentment or this pain or this depression or this blah, 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 just go to the worthiness. Take the whole thing out, that whole pain plant out at the root, and the root is worthiness.